Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to colinslaststand.com. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 90, which is my actual age. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by Chris. Stay far away from him. Raygun. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not too shabby.
Yeah, that's good to hear. No one in your house has the Wuhan?
No, but I mean, who knows at this point, honestly.
Yeah. How you feel? I mean, like, you know, what we haven't talked. We talked a little bit about it on Sacred Symbols Plus 32, I think that was.
Yeah.
So people can go listen to that if they want. But, you know, I keep saying just follow the instructions of your government and municipality and try to stay away from people and wash your hands.
Yeah.
I think it's common that I think a lot of people think this is overblown, and maybe it is. I don't know, but I think it's best to err on the side of caution. So everyone out there, keep
for sure
erring on the side of caution. Even if you hate the government like I do, you still want to listen to them at this particular moment, this junction in time.
Did you see that Rage Against the Machine tweet?
Yeah, it was.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. It was good. I think it's really scary that it's frustrating to me because, like, I think that we can. I'm sick of this flatten the curve fucking talk. I want to actually kill myself if I hear that term again. But the fact is, if everyone just stayed away from each other for just a little while, it would just go away quicker.
Yeah.
You know, like we would just be able to deal with it quicker instead of just like some people are doing the right thing and some people aren't. And who knows what's real and what's not. But I think in matters of life and death, conspiracy theories don't serve much of a purpose. And so if the CDC and very intelligent scientists and doctors are saying things, then I think it's good to listen to them.
Here's the thing. There's virtually no financial incentive to crash the economy over a fake virus.
No.
So chances are it's a real thing. Chances are you're going to want to just be careful. It's better to be kind of loony for a little bit and be like a bit of a hermit than it is to be an overconfident asshole that accidentally kills a bunch of people.
Right.
So...
Right.
Yeah.
And I have a bunch of, I don't want to say a bunch, but, you know, I have some older family members and immunocompromised people and people with heart conditions and all this. And
yeah.
So I'm especially worried about that. I mean, my life's not changed at all. I don't even leave the house. So I just go and run errands sometimes and get the mail, you know, whatever you have to do. But my life's really not changed materially at all. So I'm watching the stock market with great trepidation and gotta say also a little bit of intrigue because I think it might be a good time to buy for all of us out there in a couple months. But
yeah,
nonetheless, first and foremost, just stay safe. Please stay safe out there. Be well and take heart that we are all going through it together. And at least we have in our particular hobby, we're all shut-ins and losers anyway. So we have our video games to keep us company. Doom's coming out.
Yeah.
Neo 2 just came out.
Perfect
Final
time.
Fantasy 7's coming out. Yeah, good times. We're fine. Everything's fine. So stay confident and be good out there. All right, so Sacred Symbols is our weekly PlayStation podcast. You can get it 3 days early and ad-free on Patreon, patreon.com/Colin/stand. Your subscription is greatly appreciated. You can join us for as little as 25 cents a week, and it helps us continue to do the show. I can pay Chris's bills and help him survive this dark and dire world. So please do join us over there. You also get exclusive access to Sacred Symbols Plus, our weekly supplemental episode of the show where we go 60, 90, sometimes even 120 minutes on some random topics. I think this week we actually will go into Xbox Series X now that Microsoft has released more details about it, so we have more to talk about. And you can, of course, submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas on Patreon for that episode and all others. Patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Leave us nice reviews on free feeds if you're a freeloader or a scallywag or a rabble-rouser, or any of those combination of things. And remember that our game Twin Breaker, a Sacred Symbols adventure, comes out very soon.
Yeah.
March 24th. By the time you hear the next episode of this, the game will be out. And it's very exciting for us. Pre-orders on playasia.com end March 19th. So if you're hearing this on free feeds, it's too late for you. Hopefully you listened. Digital, $9.99 cross-buy, 2 trophy lists. Game again comes out March 24th. We've been working hard on fixing some things that were broken. And they're not really broken. We've had some problems with trophies we wanted to make sure to refine, and some text that needed to be corrected and all the rest. So there are patches available. And so, yeah, we've been working hard on all of that as well. Now, Chris, I was going to wait to talk about this until we got to the games we're playing, but I want to talk to you about it now. What do you think of the game? You played through the final build. You beat the game.
Yeah.
I played and beat it on both PS4 and Vita. I got the Platinum Trophy on PS4. Still have to get the Platinum on Vita, but it's my game, so I'll break the embargo all I want. We can talk about it as much as you'd like. So what do you think of the game? Do you think it's good? I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, no, it came out really good. It's especially interesting because I'm not really at all into Arkanoid at all. Like, those are not my style of games at all. So when I finished it, I was I was disappointed that there wasn't more to it. You know what I mean? Like there was that it ended, and I was like, oh, that's weird. That doesn't normally happen.
Yeah, you wanted more. That's good.
Yeah, it's good. It came out really great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, we are committed to doing a sequel, and the game does end on a cliffhanger, so you guys have that to look forward to. Did you like seeing yourself in the game, your dialogue?
It's a little weird. It's a little freaky.
Yeah,
something weird about that for sure.
Yeah, I tried to make it fun and funny, and it's serious. The game has serious themes, so I hope that people don't go into it thinking that it's supposed to be referential to us in a way, but it's a game about first contact and war and humanity and all that, and I hope that people take the messages away from it that are in there, but I guess it's going to be up to interpretation, and hopefully everyone enjoys it. I will be doing an episode all about the development of the game with Barry, and then we'll maybe all three of us do a spoiler cast after that at some point. So both of those will be on Sacred Symbols Plus, because I'd love to talk about the story and see what people took out of it, because I've never put a piece of fiction into the world, actually. So it's interesting, and I'll be interested to see if people think it's as good as I think it is, but I don't know. I'm biased. I wrote it.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so yeah, check out Twin Breaker. Thank you so much for your excitement. Really don't know if it's good timing or bad timing, but
we'll see.
I guess we're going to find out. I think it's probably good timing.
Yeah, I think so.
But I'd prefer that we weren't all suffering from a pandemic if it were up to me. Ripperoo22 has the only correction this week. He says, hey guys, just wanted to say I loved the last episode, but I had a bit of an issue with the way Colin pronounced Chocobo when discussing connections between the Final Fantasy games. Colin, I love you, but this is completely unacceptable and way worse than your dislike for Final Fantasy X, which is by far the best in the series. Much love to you both, though. Well, first of all, you have fucking terrible taste, Ripperoo. By the way, my dad called me a few days ago. I was talking to him, and he was saying that he was listening to an episode of Knockback where I called the patrons fucking assholes or something like that. I think it was The Matrix.
Yeah.
That I did. And he was like, you really shouldn't be calling your fans that. I'm like, that's a joke. I guess it's not coming through. My dad just thinks I'm fucking shitting on everyone on the internet. But obviously I'm joking. But so last week so the word chocobo, which is how it's said.
Yeah, isn't it chocobo? That's how I always pronounced it.
It is, but I sometimes throw in chocobo. Because there are a bunch of names from video games that I was saying wrong. I think that's probably everyone's experience. Gaiden is probably the biggest one, Ninja Gaiden. But also there are others, like in our area where we're from, Chris, in the tri-state, I don't know if it was for you, but we all called it Mario, Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, no.
We didn't call it Mario.
Jesus Christ, no. Mario? You said Mario?
Yeah, like Mario. Oh, and so I had to be slowly corrected. Like, Eco is another one. Like I used to call it Ico.
Yeah.
And I used to call id Software ID Software and all of that stuff until I was corrected in the broadband internet age when you heard people saying it. And I worked at IGN, so obviously I was corrected there as well. But sometimes Chocobo just slips out.
Right.
I have to, it's in there deep in my mind.
That's fair.
And so I do know it's Chocobo, but you can see how I would get Chocobo.
Yeah,
right?
No,
I mean, it's
for sure.
CHOCOBO. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I would always, every time I would see Doom, I would always, when I was a kid, I would only always I would always ever see Doom in like mirrors. So I always thought it was Mood for like the longest time. Boy, was that embarrassing.
You really are dyslexic. So I did want to read that and acknowledge your correction, Ripperoo 22. Thank you for that. Chris, a lot of people have been writing into us. I'm not going to discuss this in the news. I think it's kind of, in a way, not a news story. But this Naughty Dog article on Kotaku by Jason Schreier, it's called As Naughty Dog Crunches on The Last of Us 2, Developers Wonder How Much Longer This Approach Can Last. And a ton of people, and I mean a ton of people, wrote in about this. And by the way, I just want to reiterate too, it's worth your while to read what other people are submitting, because by the time I get to like the 10th or 15th of the same question, I'm just starting to skip them. So you're wasting your inquiry on things that have already been asked. And I feel bad about that, but there's nothing I can do. I can't force you to drink the water horses. I can only lead you to the water. Yeah. And then it's up to you what you do with it. But Jared Hines wrote into us, Chris, and he said, hello, Curvaceous Colin and Kathana Chris. What is your reaction to Jason Schreier's new Kotaku expose on Naughty Dog and their development of The Last of Us 2? While Naughty Dog has been upfront about crunch time in the past and how that it is practically an expectation for their games, this article paints a much bleaker environment for the studio, so much so that some developers say that there's a part of them that actually wishes this game would fail. I remember when a similar article came out about Rockstar with the development of Red Dead Redemption 2, and you guys broke down the game development hierarchy. But one of the takeaways from that discussion you had was that working hard being, and he says, quote, so this might have been a quote, like a direct quote of one of us, working hard, being a workaholic, and putting your all into a creative field or endeavor makes sense as long as you don't normalize the behavior, end quote. Do you believe that Naughty Dog is taking advantage of that workaholic mentality, as some fear being the first one to leave the office when everyone else is still working? I personally am at a crossroads with this article, as these guys are compensated for their extra time. However, no one should loathe coming into work and not knowing if they're going home that night. I look forward to hearing your comments on this, and keep Tuesdays great. What were your thoughts, Chris, on this Naughty Dog article that popped up last week?
I would say it's very similar to the last Crunch article that came out that we talked about, which is that these are things that happen when you are making games that have a lot of expectations behind them. And when people are very passionate about certain things, they will work very, very hard on them, and they will work unnecessarily hard on them. And sometimes companies can exploit that, and that's definitely a true thing. The more interesting thing that I saw about this whole news story was there were some people. There was one guy in particular who left who said a more organized and professional team could have put The Last of Us Part 2 out a year ago, which is the thing that I saw that kind of struck me as kind of interesting, because he's kind of implying that there is like a lot of perfectionism at Naughty Dog, but it's really, really poorly organized, and it's literally just it's the BioWare magic kind of thing. And I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Naughty Dog has a BioWare magic kind of mentality. That wouldn't shock me at all. And in fact, when the dude said, when there was some anonymous person who was asked about the game, and they said they hoped that it would fail, there were people saying that about Dragon Age, I think, at BioWare, hoping that game would fail because they were so convinced that BioWare magic was a thing. So I don't know. This is a big topic, and there's a lot to talk about. This could be an entire episode about just this. So it's hard to just answer a question in like a line or two. Yeah,
I agree. The parallel thing that Chris is mentioning is a Twitter thread from a guy named Jonathan Cooper, Game Anim. His name is GameAnim on Twitter. He did animation on Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us 2, Assassin's Creed 3, the Mass Effect series. And he left, I guess, last year. And he had a little tweet storm where he does say that the game would have been finished by a more organized and more professional team, and that the real talent of the studio has largely left in a lot of different ways. I feel in a way similar to what you said at the top, Chris, which was this story seems like a repeat of what was said about Red Dead Redemption 2. And I would really love a follow-up with the Red Dead Redemption 2 story, just from if like the people that wrote the original expose, I think that was Jason as well, could talk to the same exact sources and see how they liked their bonus checks that they got. Some of them scaling into the six figures for their work on Red Dead Redemption 2. And if you don't want to put a monetary value on your time, that's fine. But That's the way business works. And I again feel like the lead is being buried in a lot of these stories for an end. I don't think it's telling the story exactly the way it should be told. They bury in the story that contractors get time and a half and double time after 8 and 12 hours respectively. If I were them, I would want to work as much as possible if that were the case. They ignore the fact and bury in the article, again, the bonus checks and the expansive months that they get off after games like this. So it's not like you're just working this and then you just go back into the lull of a 40 or 50 hour work week. That's just not the way it works at these studios. And until I hear a story about how someone is threatened to be fired or if they're literally chained to a desk working on one of these games, I don't feel that bad about it. I just don't. People would kill to be in this position. It's not to say Naughty Dog can't do better. It's not to say that they have all of the best talent in the industry, because they don't. But I just don't understand what people don't understand about the creation of pieces of art like this. It's just not going to be done in tidy 40-hour weeks in 3 years. It's just not. It's not possible. I don't.
Right. This isn't necessarily how I see it, but I think the perspective is generally, it's one thing to work so hard that it like destroys you and like you're crippling yourself emotionally and physically and possibly causing permanent damage to yourself to get something like a vaccine created or something that is kind of necessary versus a piece of art which ultimately at the end of the day is not actually necessary. That's the only lens that I could look at it through that would lend any amount of credence to it to me. Like, what are you doing? What is the incentive to break your back for something that's ultimately just not really all that important?
Yeah, I guess. But I hear you, because it's not like the coronavirus vaccine or something.
I'm not saying that I think this, by the way. This is just like my best interpretation of a viewpoint.
Yeah, I understand. I think from my perspective, I just feel like it's such a multidiscipline field.
Yeah,
gaming.
For sure.
Probably more than almost any art. Like even more than I think movie and television production.
Oh yeah.
It takes way longer to do. And I just don't think you can, like, people that think, even people in the industry, it's really shocking to me when people are like, you could produce your way out of this with a producer and stuff. And it's worth noting that Naughty Dog, until I think Uncharted 4, didn't have producers, which is really crazy. I mean, that's certainly fucking crazy. And for people that don't know, producers in the video game industry are basically the schedule keepers and make sure that things are coming together and being done on time. But even at studios where there are producers, things don't necessarily get done on time. And so I want to throw that in, that's certainly not helping Naughty Dog's reputation and this inability to have like a vertical arrangement with producers and instead have this really flat structure has not really helped them stay organized. And I get that. They've delayed a lot of their games in the past, although they did make the Uncharted trilogy pretty quickly. But for me, I look at the situation and I'm like, yeah, you could have helped yourself and made this a little bit easier on your team. But because of the multidiscipline nature, I'm so shocked by some of the ignorance coming from both inside and outside of the industry, where it's like, you could have really scheduled this better and had this so you don't have to crunch. And I'm like, it's just not the way it works. I mean, even if you don't know anything about video games and know about how they're made, you should know better than to think that that's how it works, because something is discovered or a design is changed or a scene has to be added, or they play test it and something needs to be fixed. And then it fucks everything up. I mean, that's just the way it works. It's not like you can just say like 3 years out, like in 2 years from now in April, we're going to be working on this. It's like, that's just not how it works. You can have 5 producers on the project and it's not going to work. So I just think people need to be a little bit more realistic about how they expect these great AAA games to be made. And is it an arms race? Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm a little concerned that people in the studio there's actually people working on the game that want the game to fail. That's fucking crazy, because that now sacrifices everyone's hard work and sacrifices your own monetary gain at the back end. And this, what could be the most important game you ever make. And I just don't know what people expect and what they want. And when I read stuff on Kotaku, I can't help but feel like it's like listening to a lot of political commentators online or reading certain websites or magazines where it's always about reinforcing the point. You're never going to hear something nice about work conditions or culture on Kotaku. It's just not going to happen. You're never going to see a story about the detriment of a union. You're never going to hear a story about how Crunch made a game better. You're never going to hear a story. Like, it's just always to a narrative. And I just think it's dishonest, because I think that anyone can talk to a group of people and come out with a story on the other end. But I don't understand what the problem is. If you don't want to work at Naughty Dog, don't. If you don't want to work on games, don't. If you don't want to crunch, don't. And I don't understand how else to put it.
Right.
I feel like we're reading, it's like reading about serfdom or something. It's like, or indentured servitude. It's like, you're not a slave to this. Like, if you don't want to work that much, don't. Like, go do something else. I don't know. So I'm not excusing abusive behavior in the workplace or unsafe behavior. They actually the article opens with what was a pretty unsafe thing that happened, where I think a light fixture fell out of the ceiling. But even then, that's not Naughty Dog's fault. That's the construction's, like, that's the weird thing about opening with that. It's like, there's a construction team up. They work in an office building in Santa Monica over, I think, 2 floors, called the Water Garden. And I guess there was construction going on like overnight upstairs, and the construction crew like fucked something up and something fell out of the ceiling. And it's like, that's Naughty Dog's fault? You know, like, I just don't know. That's what I'm saying. It just seems like everything is always the developer's fault and the publisher's fault. Always. No one has any agency over their lives. There's nothing to be gained from working hard. And I'm just kind of sick of hearing about it.
Right.
Until someone has something new to say, I'm sick of hearing about it. And even this Jonathan Cooper guy on Twitter, it's interesting to read his thread, but then people dig up like his old tweets where it's like he was thrilled to be there. And he, as of like a year ago, he loved it. And he couldn't believe the sheer talent and all this kind of stuff. And people's tunes just change. And you're allowed to change your mind and have different experiences. But I think it's just important that we continue to view things with a skeptical eye. And I really did like how Neil Druckmann came out and somewhat passively aggressively defended his team.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really nice thing to do, and something that he didn't have to do, and that probably, I would say, even brought some heat on him. So I don't know, like, he wrote on the 13th, even after years of working on it, I'm still blown away by the animation in part 2. We have one of, if not the best animation team in the industry, both in raw animation skill and technical knowledge. Can't wait for you to experience their incredible work. And that was obviously a passive reaction to what people were saying about how all the good animators left. Well, how does that make the people there feel? You know, and then he wrote, some unsung heroes of part 2 are the members of our production team. You all have brought order to our chaos, wrangled a complex schedule, and facilitated valuable communication. Game wouldn't be what it is without you. Hats off. So I think it's really cool that he came out and said those things as well, because it would have been easier to just ignore it.
Yeah.
All right. So Ollie G, not to be confused with Ali G, wrote in and said, hello, Coitus, Colin, and Copulating Chris. In a recent episode, both of you seemed concerned about Ghost of Tsushima being released so close to The Last of Us Part 2. Since summer is so barren when it comes to games, do you think this is the strategy behind the release date in June? I think there is enough breathing room for both games. Second, I've heard that this might be a strategy by PlayStation to dominate the conversation around E3, RIP. Basically a PlayStation sandwich that Xbox is stuck in and can't avoid. What are your guys' thoughts? I was surprised. We got a lot of negative feedback about, I don't think it was so much you, but about a lot of my skepticism about not only the release date of Ghost of Tsushima, but that it seems to indicate that Sony doesn't really feel confident in it.
Right.
Do you have your thoughts changed at all now that you've gotten a little more time to marinate on it? Or
I mean, I didn't think that it was because they were unconfident. I just thought they were. I just think Sony is just kind of inept at scheduling things. Like, it just feels like a lot of their higher end kind of framework people who kind of decide when news comes out or like when certain things happen, they're just not particularly smart right now. I don't know what else to say. Like, I think we brought it up last time about how they started talking about PS5 and on the same day that Concrete Genie came out, and it's like, what? You know, it's a similar kind of thing where it's like, why would you talk about all this now, and then why would you have this release date here? It just seems like poor planning, more so than it seems like a lack of confidence in the product. But also, I don't know, maybe there is something to the fact that June is, or summer is, particularly barren. That's a reasonable strategy. I don't think it's to dominate the conversation around E3 though. I think it's more likely, hey, summer is a good time.
Yeah, we will, I guess, find out. I don't really have much more to say. I feel like I made a pretty good case for why I felt that way, just because of the proximity to The Last of Us Part 2 and announcing The Last of Us TV series the same day as the Ghost of Tsushima's release date is weird. And I think that that's obvious, but I appreciate that everyone gave that feedback and feel like we're being a little hard on it, or I am anyway. And you're heard loud and clear, but I am going to stick with my gut there, and we'll see how it all turns out in June.
Yeah.
And then finally, Chris, there is a I don't want to say frivolous, but there's a Konami story making the rounds. It's not going to be in the news, but there's a story making the rounds that Konami is interested in selling to Sony Metal Gear, Silent Hill, and Castlevania. This seems frankly preposterous to me. So I could be wrong on this, it could be something as easy as like Konami is going to license their games to Sony as PS5 exclusives or whatever, their IP, but we're not talking about it because it's unsubstantiated, and I personally don't believe it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But if it does come true, or there's more information about that, we will certainly talk about it and work our way through it. But I wanted to let everyone know why that's not going to be in the news.
Yeah, there's no way that's there's no way that's happening. I
just don't understand why. I could believe that Konami would be like, we were just going to give all of our games as licenses to Sony to do what they want with. I believe that. I think that's possible, but why would they sell their IP when they can just milk their IP? Doesn't make any sense from a financial standpoint
Especially
at all.
Castlevania. Castlevania is huge right now.
Yeah, it's like got that anime.
There's no good reason to sell Castlevania. Castlevania is probably, weirdly enough, like if you had told me, like if this story had broke, or if this rumor had started, coming around about like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would say that Castlevania is probably the least important one, but I would say that honestly now it's probably the most.
Yeah, it's got that critically acclaimed Netflix series, and now some people are looking into some of the things that were going on around, I guess around the Castlevania franchise in particular. It's true that Castlevania Requiem, for instance, was ported with Sony's money to PS4 and all of that, but some people are looking a little too much into it with Blue Point Games and a Metal Gear game being rumored to being established there. But Blue Point, before Blue Point was really known to anyone, is the studio that ported Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 to Xbox 360 and PS3 and Vita. So they're not new to that franchise, and they're not new to having a relationship with Konami. So I'm just pretty skeptical about the way that story is worded, and we'll see how it all turns out. But as it's worded, I do not believe it. So I could be wrong, and we'll find out. But that's why it's not being treated as real news for the time being. Chris, let's get into what we're playing. We talked about Twin Breaker already. It says here you're playing Destiny 2.
Yeah, I think there's a new season happening right now. So they've been doing these season refreshes, a new season every month or two, or there's some oscillating season thing going on Destiny right now. And they had this big event, and now there's a really competitive PvP mode that's coming back into the fray that's got me and my roommates pretty excited. Don't know how interesting it really is, as far as like how interesting it is to talk about, because you can pretty much always assume that if I don't write down Destiny 2, I'm probably playing Destiny 2, because it's just the background game that I play all the time. Like every night I do a couple games and shit. But if by any chance somebody is listening to this who has any standing at Bungie whatsoever, please maybe don't buff auto rifles. It's really unnecessary. Hard light is unavoidable. I can't stop seeing that gun, and it's making the game kind of unbearable. So I'll just say that basically.
I think I'm trying to think here. I feel like I discussed this on Plus, so I don't want to assume that everyone heard that, but I wish I didn't have my weird control freak out in 2014, because I think I'd be more into Destiny at this point than I currently am.
Oh yeah, the what is it? Because you had that moment where your brain short circuited.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't play like any first person shooters for like 2 months. It was really weird.
I don't think you would get that into it.
No, probably not. I love first person shooters. Like I like playing them, and I don't play enough of them anymore. So, but you're right. But I did love The Division, and I feel like it's structured somewhat the same. I mean, they're not the same genre, but
yeah,
I think it's possible that I would have liked Destiny more than I think that I would, but I just missed out on the boat, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm still playing Gumbear, Super Strikers, with nothing more to really say about that. But I did buy and download Langrisser 1 and 2, which are these old Mega Drive / Genesis games. The second one actually never came out here. The first one came out on Genesis in the United States as a game called War Song. These are strategy, like tactical role-playing games. It's good. I haven't gotten very far. It's not quite what I'm looking for, but I need to sit with it more and spend a little bit more time with it. But it is out there. It's a little expensive. I think I paid like $40 or $50 for it. That seems a little steep to me, but it was published by NIS America, which is cool. And it is worth noting that there is a mode to kind of like make the animation and the art look new or go back to the old style, and the music and the voice acting, which is in Japanese and all that. So it's pretty cool if you're into that sort of ability to break out and play one version or the other. And it's 2 games in one, which is nice as well. But want to give it a shout out. It's interesting. People should go watch a trailer, see if it might be for you. It's certainly not like Fell Seal or anything like that, where it's just this extraordinary tactical role-playing game. but I dig nonetheless, and I'm glad I checked it out, although I probably should have waited. It probably would be on sale pretty soon.
Yeah, probably.
We live in historic times. The global quarantine has given us all a chance to detach from others, reflect, and come back stronger than ever, similar to Batman's experience in the 2011 smash hit movie, The Dark Knight Rises. You know, when he lived in that prison pit thing. Anyway, with all the negativity surrounding us, the social distancing and the seclusion, it's an awesome time to focus on you, so that when we all reemerge from our Neo Fallout shelters, having played 1,000 hours of video games and binge-watch every show on Netflix, we have something to show for it. That's where the hair loss treatment Keeps comes into play. The sad reality for men is that 2 out of every 3 of us will experience some sort of male pattern baldness by the time we're in our mid-30s. And being proactive is a great way to stem the tide and keep what you have, kind of like we're being proactive by living hermit lifestyles at the current time. Keeps is an FDA-approved, affordable, and accessible treatment that's up to 90% effective at not only reducing your current rate of hair loss, but allowing you to keep the precious hair you already have. And with the medical system currently under great stress, you'll be pleased to know that you won't need to go to a doctor's office to get approved. Instead, you can see a doctor online and get your product shipped directly to your home. Keeps is popular for a reason. For thousands and thousands of men, it really and truly works. And it may just work for you too. So give it a shot so that when the sun shines on you again, it doesn't scorch the exposed top of your head, but instead beams off of your luscious mane in a soon-to-be post-pandemic world. To try Keeps for yourself for your own hair loss, go to keeps.com/symbols. That's KEEPS.com/SYMBOLS. And get your first month of treatment free of charge. It's that easy. Do something for yourself, my friends. Again, that's keeps.com/symbols. All right, Chris, let's get into the news. Number 1, E3 2020 has been officially canceled, meaning this will be the first year since the mid-90s that the world-famous gaming trade show hasn't taken place. According to the official website of the Entertainment Software Association, the American lobbying group that owns and operates E3, the show will not happen in Los Angeles or anywhere else, though there may be some sort of online or streaming component that replaces some of what was being planned. Their statement reads in part, quote, "Following increased and overwhelming concerns about the COVID-19 virus, we felt this was the best way to proceed during such an unprecedented global situation. We are very disappointed that we are unable to hold this event for our fans and supporters, but we know it's the right decision based on the information we have today." End quote. Both exhibitors and paying attendees will be issued full refunds, and the ESA promises to bring E3 back in 2021. News of E3's cancellation comes alongside other announcements, including the cancellation of all Electronic Arts run live and competitive events for the foreseeable future, and a promise from Gamescom, which runs in August in Germany, that all purchased tickets will be refunded if that show can't proceed as intended. Garrett Jaggard wrote in and said, "Greetings, coronavirus Colin and Crustaceous Chris. With E3 having already been canceled due to the Wuhan outbreak becoming such a serious concern in the US, do you believe the show will ever return? Or is this just an unceremonious mercy killing? Thank you for making the Tuesday." Thank you, Garrett, for your inquiry. So it does say in the statement that the ESA released that they do intend on bringing the show back in 2021. But Chris, do you think it will actually happen?
No, I don't think so.
You think it's over?
I think it's over. I think the ESA relies so heavily on E3, and I don't know. I just don't know where they're going to get the money. Like, I just genuinely, maybe they could get like a grant or so. Like, I genuinely have no idea. Like, if I was at the ESA, I would have no clue how to put on that show. It's possible that E3 continues as far as like the IP, like E3 as a thing, and probably just kind of devolves into like a smaller PAX kind of deal. But like, even then, like, I don't know, man. This is a pretty big it's a pretty big blow, and it couldn't have come at a worse time with everybody leaving. And like I would stand to say that a year ago, 2 years ago, E3 probably could have survived a cancellation like this. But like Jeff Keighley pulling out, Sony pulling out, all sorts of people pulling out, the increase of tension between the ESA and the people who actually do like E3, and just like the way that they handled last year when they doxed all those media personalities and all those influencers and journalists, and it's just the worst possible time for this kind of thing to happen. And I do think it's probably a final blow. I think they're kind of trying to save face by kind of ensuring people who might be interested in helping them come back next year that, hey, we plan on going ahead, but I really don't think they have a plan. I think it's all talk.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, because I mentioned this when GDC was canceled, that they were really quite forthcoming with offering refunds and stuff. And obviously they had all these sunken costs, and in San Francisco getting the Moscone Center, and LA obviously getting the LA Expo Center or Convention Center and all of this. I do wonder if there are insurance policies that they take out, like these massive corporate insurance policies that cover this sort of thing. And that might be the reason why, even with Gamescom, they're so forthcoming with offering refunds, because otherwise I don't really see how it would be possible to maintain your financial solvency, like you're saying, without having run the show that's worth 50% of their annual revenue. So there's got to be more to this than meets the eye. I don't think they can just say like, oh, we'll see what happens next year. I think that they have to say that they're going to do E3 next year and then see what happens from there. I'm sure they intend on doing it, but I agree with you. I think it's very much like the work at home stuff that's happening right now. A lot of companies are going to realize they don't need to have corporate offices when they realize that work is getting done and everyone's fine just working from home, and it lowers overhead and it makes things cheaper. And people might realize with E3 that it's really not necessary. And so we will find out. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Number 2. E3's cancellation naturally nixes all of the more traditional press conference plans the attending publishers and platform holders had, with one major surprise among the casualties. For the first time ever, Warner Brothers Games publishing arm was planning to do an E3 press conference, according to a tweet from Kotaku's Jason Schreier. This represents an interesting twist, as WB has traditionally inserted its games into the hardware manufacturer's press conferences, as it made sense to do so, though Sony had already opted not to be at E3 this year before the coronavirus crisis befell us. It was here at the press conference that WB was going to show off not only the much-teased WB Montreal Batman game, but Rocksteady's eagerly anticipated game, and also a AAA Harry Potter RPG that has been long rumored and in development for some time. Jason notes on Twitter that he's unclear what WB's plan is now, and it's of course possible that they, along with other press conference holders, will simply do a VOD or a live but remote version of their press conferences to get the word out on their upcoming games. This was a little bit of a surprise to me because I didn't anticipate this. Bethesda was the last publisher to join in 2015, I think it was, with having an E3 press conference for the first time, and they've been doing it every year since. I never expected that WB was going to do their own. They have a lot to talk about, it seems like. What did you make of this news? Because these are pretty anticipated games. This Batman game has been teased for a while. Rocksteady's been quiet since 2015, so it's been like almost 5 years since they released Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
And the Harry Potter RPG has been, I don't give a fuck about Harry Potter, but I know that that's going to be a big one as well. So what did you make of this absence? This is a pretty big blow.
Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty big blow, but at the same time, we probably wouldn't have known about this for a decent amount of time. I feel like this would have been something that they would have unveiled like a little bit before E3, like, hey, we're having a conference, oh boy. And now we kind of know sooner that they have stuff to show, which means that we know that they're definitely gonna show a Batman game this year. We know that they're definitely gonna show off that game, that Harry Potter thing. We know they have, because what else are they gonna show? Like, what else could they possibly have aside from the Batman game? There would be no reason to throw a press conference unless you had that. It would be the same thing as Bethesda finally joining E3 for the first time. It's like, oh well, they're definitely gonna talk about Fallout. Like, there's no way they're gonna have a like, they're not going to not unveil Fallout 4 at their first E3 press conference. So I think it's kind of cool. I think they're probably just going to do what Microsoft said they were going to do and just do like a live streamed virtual event. I think it would just make sense. I think people are starting to realize that they don't need to be at these trade shows anymore. And I think it's cool that we have this information now as opposed to getting it, a couple months later. It means we have something to look forward to in the absence of a E3 week.
Yeah, I think that they could do something like Square Enix has done where more recently where they don't have like any sort of live stage presence, even if it's videotaped, but rather just a series of trailers and interviews and stuff, which I think is really appropriate for a publisher the size of Square Enix. And Square Enix is, I would even argue, a little bit bigger than WB, but yeah, I think this explains a lot why the WB Montreal Batman game has been being teased so much, because we did talk about that, I think, just last week. Someone wrote in about that. And Rocksteady's game, I don't know. There was a lot of Justice League rumoring going on, and I think then they dispelled that. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. It would be really nice if they were doing something unique, but who knows, something not licensed. But that's kind of WB's trump card, is to have access to all these licenses. So I think that's probably unlikely. And then the Harry Potter RPG, I guess Harry Potter is still incredibly relevant. So with the wizarding world of Harry Potter and with the Fantastic Beasts books and whatnot. So I'll eagerly anticipate that. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, because it is cool to see a new entrant. Because when Bethesda did theirs, I felt like they really should have just done one every 2 or 3 years, because they, I think, have had pretty weak conferences since that first one. But yeah, it would be interesting to see if this was just like WB's stars aligning once and then they would go away again, or just go back to the manufacturers' press conferences as needed. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Number 3, for a month or so, we here on this podcast have been discussing the chance that PlayStation 5 wouldn't make it out this year as originally planned, and coronavirus's ill effects appear to be further confirming that fear. According to Forbes, a well-regarded business analyst is warning its clients that both PS5 and Xbox One risk not coming out this year, being instead pushed to 2021. DFC Intelligence's forecast reads in part, quote, "Coronavirus is likely to have a major short-term impact on the delivery of both systems. There is a strong likelihood one or both systems will not make a 2020 launch. If the systems do launch, supply will likely be constrained and initial pricing could be higher than expected. Currently, the economy is in an unprecedented state of uncertainty. Even if the situation clears up in a few weeks, the ability to manufacture and release a new high-end game system has already been severely impacted," end quote. While neither Sony nor Microsoft have talked about a specific release date, they have confirmed intentions for holiday 2020 releases, presumably in October or November. Matthew O'Sullivan wrote into us on Patreon, just like you can out there, and says, "If you had a bet on $499 on what year PS5 will launch, given the events of last week, which year would you bet on? I'm really starting to think 2021 is looking likely." Now, I gotta say, Chris, not to have a Colin was right celebration moment, but even before coronavirus, I was saying that I don't think PS5 is coming out this year. And that was because of supply constraints and pricing issues and competition for components. I think that I would easily bet $500 this thing's not coming out this year. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think's gonna happen?
Yeah, I don't know. It really, I would probably bet that, it was probably going to come out next year. I don't think the economy is in a place that's good right now to release a machine. I think if this thing is like very unprecedented, and there's no way to tell how long this kind of thing is going to affect our day-to-day lives, let alone like the general economy, which it's already having like profoundly negative effects on. So I would imagine that even if things did get back on track and they somehow managed to maybe delay the release of the consoles even just a month, into like if they were going for September, they push it into October, or October into November, people are still probably going to be not all that interested in spending $500 on a new gaming machine when they're short on cash from all this shit.
Yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, if people are looking forward to PS5 this fall, I think you should temper your expectations, because the DFC Intelligence forecast is interesting because it says, and this is exactly what I said, so I'm pretty proud of myself. You guys should be pretty proud of me if you listen to this show, because I said that even if the console comes out, they're going to be so supply constrained that it's going to make it as if they shouldn't have launched it at all. It's going to cause a lot of problems, scalping, and all of those kinds of things. And so I think it just makes a lot more sense for them to hold their consoles until March. Now, DFC Intelligence beats around the bush a little bit and doesn't really talk too deeply about it, but the primary problem is not only the economy, which I think we don't know. As we're recording this, the stock market dropped the most in any day, other than I think in the one day in the 80s since the Depression. So even more than the recession that happened in 2008. And so we are in uncharted territory now So things can change materially even by the time we publish this tomorrow. But I look at this situation and I kind of agree that I think the market will bounce back once we see how this thing all settles. People want to spend money and they want consumer goods. It's just that it's being made in China. And I think that a lot of factory capacity there is just going to be affected. And then they're also going to be backlogged on other things that they need to build. So unless Sony's willing to pay more to kind of jump the line at Foxconn or whatever, it's just not going to be possible to get these machines out at an appropriate price and in a way that's not supply constrained. So to Matthew's question, Chris, I'm very comfortable betting $500 that this thing's not coming out this year. And I'm perfectly fine with that, by the way, because there's plenty of games to play on PS4. I don't think we really need these new consoles right now, but we're going to get them. I just think we're going to get it in like February or March. Max Dexter Smith wrote into us about this and said, hey, Colin and Chris, with the outbreak of a more contagious flu threatening to shut the world down, will this coronavirus be the final nail in the coffin for physical games? With workplaces and factories closing to contain the virus, I imagine getting physical discs and cartridges would be a lot more expensive, and publishers would, at least in the short term, look towards releasing games digitally. Thanks for making Tuesdays and Fridays great, and for using my porn name for the name of your upcoming game. Oh, that's disgusting. So it's actually kind of hot though, and at the same time. So every game is available digitally. Every game that's ever been on PlayStation 4 is available digitally. So everyone's always had that option. But do you think that the virus will stop people from buying games physically, Chris, or push them more towards buying digitally? Not only because they might not necessarily be able to leave the house or whatever, or they don't want to get deliveries, but also because it's just more convenient this way.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely going to turn the idea of, I think it's going to turn a lot of people on to the idea of digital purchases, especially like if they've traditionally like been really hard-headed about like, oh, hey, I'm going to stick with physical games. I like my box. I like my manuals, which you don't get anyway anymore. But yeah, I think not being able to leave the house is probably like going to be the main thing for a lot of people who are like, I want this new game. Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing are coming out. I imagine a lot of people, a lot of kids maybe, who maybe just aren't used to it, will probably be like, hey, you know what? I could just get this digitally and not leave the house and not die. And
right,
then it's probably gonna.
Don't expose yourself.
And then once all this virus talk is lightened up and everybody's back on their feet again, they're probably not going to go back, because that's sort of what happens when you go to an objectively more convenient way of doing things.
Yeah, I think this could be like an unintended positive consequence for everyone involved. And it is a good point, to Max's point, that discs might actually be more expensive to manufacture. So it's not only about the ability to go and get them, because you could easily get them delivered and stuff like that with little negative impact, at least for the time being. But yeah, it could be a situation where it's just going to be harder to find the manufacturing capacity to make these games. And as I brought up many times, so I don't mean to be redundant, but games like Borderlands 3 and The Division 2 were canaries in the coal mine for physical games, as those both sold more than 50% of their copies digitally at launch. And that's a great sign for things to come, I think, and will allow prices, I think, ultimately to adjust. Although I know, as we've discussed in the past, that digital prices stay stubbornly high for the time being. David Thomas wrote into us, the son of Dave Thomas, founder of Wendy's, says, hello, boys. Do you think that game sales will increase overall this year due to coronavirus? I think that people who are at home self-isolating will lead to a lot of games being sold. What do you think, Chris? Do you think we'll see more cumulative game sales than we otherwise would have?
Yes.
Because of this? Yeah, I think so too.
Without a doubt. It's like the best thing to invest in when you're stuck at home. Like, who the hell's going to buy a movie to occupy them for like an hour when they could buy Doom Eternal and occupy themselves for like 30 to 40 hours? Why would you, like, it just seems like the smart thing to do, Yeah,
I agree with you here, because I think typically in the last year of a console, software sales precipitously drop because people are anticipating the new console. Games are not coming out at a great clip, but there are actually a lot of great current gen games coming out this year. I think if they can also thread the needle on PlayStation Network with some good sales and some appropriate discount pricing for games that have been out for a while, maybe double the PlayStation Plus offering, for instance, for the month, which I think would be really cool to do in April if we're still dealing with this in a quarantine type situation. I think a lot of that would be a really positive way to push volumes of games, even if money's made is flat or down. I think you'll see more games sold. All right, Chris, number 4. Yes, the rumors were true, and Guerrilla Games' mega popular PS4 action RPG Horizon Zero Dawn is indeed coming to PC. But don't fret, this is more of an experiment than a trend, according to the newly minted head of Sony Worldwide Studios, Herman Hulst, who prior to that posting was in charge of the aforementioned Guerrilla Games, the PlayStation-owned team best known for its Killzone FPS series. In an interview on the official PlayStation blog, Hulst was asked about his vision for the future of Worldwide Studios, to which he said, quote, "We're very committed to dedicated hardware, as we were before. We're going to continue to do that. And we're very committed to quality exclusives and to strong narrative-driven single-player games. At the same time, we're going to be very open to experimentation, to new ideas, just trying things out to see what works." And then an ellipsis. I think it's important that we stay open to new ideas of how to introduce more people to PlayStation and show people maybe what they've been missing out on. And to maybe put a few minds at ease, releasing one first-party AAA title to PC doesn't necessarily mean that every game will now come to PC. In my mind, Horizon Zero Dawn was just a great fit in this particular instance. We don't have plans for day-and-date PC releases, and we remain 100% committed to dedicated hardware, end quote. While Horizon is indeed the first-party game to come to PC, it's not the first Sony-published game to migrate over by a long shot. All 3 Quantic Dream games are on PC, as are that game company's PlayStation games, as is Helldivers, and Death Stranding is soon to join that list as well as others. Angel de Jesus, probably de Jesus, wrote in.
Yeah.
Said, "Hello, Corona Safe Colin and soon-to-be victim Chris. I have no problem with Death Stranding or Horizon coming to PC, but why do you think Sony decided to not publish Death Stranding on PC? I find it a little strange. Is it because Horizon is first party and Death Stranding isn't? Colin, will you take Chris's body to the incinerator?" Yeah, I think I won't let Chris turn into one of those devilish creatures.
The sentence, the question on the Google document breaks, and he doesn't capitalize Death Stranding, so it looks like, "I have no problem with death."
Yeah, I have no problem with death. Yeah. There it is. All right, so a little bit to talk about here. People were freaking out about Horizon coming to PC, and when the rumors broke about this, people were really in denial about it. I thought it was pretty obvious that it was real, but now you know that it is. I think Herman Hulst saying this stuff is interesting, and I think it's what I said earlier on when this rumor came out, which was that it seems like an experiment to see how it does, and to extract as much value out of the game as possible. What do you make of what he said to the PlayStation blog?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think Horizon Zero Dawn is not like a storied PlayStation franchise. You know, it's just this, it's a newer addition to the family. It is a first-party edition. It is a new IP, and it is a Sony-owned IP, but that doesn't mean it needs to necessarily have this weird necessity to be glued onto the platform. It seems like the perfect kind of game to test the waters in other markets with, as far as PlayStation first party goes. You don't want to, I think I've said this before. I think we've talked about this exact thing before. It's like, you don't want to put God of War on PC because God of War has a lineage. Last of Us has a lineage. Uncharted has a lineage. Horizon's like new and fresh. So you're not breaking any precedent really by putting Horizon on PC in a way.
Yeah. Agreed. So I think it's a good thing. I think that they'll get a lot of interesting data and see how it does and see if people are interested. And then they can go from there. I think people are freaking out about this for no reason, and I don't think it's really anything to freak out about anyway. I don't know why anyone really even cares about this. But nonetheless, if you care about Sony's coffers and their ability to make some money and dump it into newer and better games, then I think that you'll be pleased that they'll be making more income and can dump it back into Guerrilla to make a new game and to tease, like we've said, Horizon 2. As far as why Sony's not publishing Death Stranding, I'm not entirely sure why they're not publishing it on PC. 505 Games is publishing it. This is going to be their biggest game ever. And I don't really know why Sony opted not to do it. I don't know if it's because they didn't want bad optics. I don't know if it's because it's second party. I don't know if Kojima Productions didn't want them to. There are a lot of different possibilities, but I don't want to speak out of turn because I really don't know why that is. So maybe we'll find out. Maybe they'll talk about it at some point. Number 5, Electronic Arts' longtime monopolistic hold on NFL games is being broken. Well, kind of. The NFL has announced that it will be working with publisher 2K to bring new football games to players, including on PlayStation platforms. A big surprise considering EA and the NFL have had an exclusivity deal since 2004, forcing competitor NFL 2K out of the business entirely. However, we're not getting a Madden competitor. According to a press release from the NFL, quote, "The NFL and 2K today announced a multi-year partnership encompassing multiple future video games. The games will be non-simulation football game experiences. While specific game titles, developers, and release dates will be announced at a later date, 2K confirmed the projects are in early development and will launch starting in calendar year 2021, end quote. David Ismailer, president of 2K, noted that their games will be, quote, centered on fun, approachable, and social experiences, end quote. The last NFL 2K game was NFL 2K5, which launched in the summer of 2004 and was notable for its approach to pricing, charging only $19.99 to Madden's, at the time, $49.99. While Madden began back in 1988, however, 2K's football offerings are far less notable, having only begun in 1999. 2K did attempt a one-off football game in 2007 called All Pro Football 2K8. They used retired player licenses instead of the NFL license, but it was neither a critical nor commercial success. It was funny, Chris. I know you're not a football fan or a sports fan, game fan, but when this news broke, people lost their minds for like 1 minute because they didn't read it deeply enough to realize that this is not going to be a simulation. So it's going to be like something more like an NFL Blitz type game and something more sociable and accessible as opposed to like a real Madden competitor. So it was funny, like reading the news, and then I read the press release and I was like, everyone's totally misinterpreting in this. And then like the next hour, everyone started kind of correcting their feelings. But this is still a pretty substantial move because the Madden monopoly is 15 years old and there really are no other NFL branded games. This is very similar to how the show really dominates baseball in the MLB license, but there are other baseball games that are not AAA simulation games like RBI baseball and so like backyard baseball and all this kind of stuff that do use various licenses. So this is a cool way for the NFL to make more money. It doesn't really hurt Electronic Arts. So there's no problem there with the NFL, and 2K can get back in the game, as it were, pardon the pun.
That's cool. That's good. It's good news.
Yeah, I think so too. I would like a more casual game, or I'd like to at least see a more casual NFL game and see what they can do with it.
Yeah.
But I remember so well, you probably don't remember this because you weren't a fan, but when NFL 2K5 was $20, that was like a huge deal. I remember that really well because that was the only year a football game outsold Madden, like another football game, in terms of quantity sold. It also came out in July that year instead of August. So I don't know why I remember that shit, but I do. Number 6, what's going on with Media Molecule's Dreams? Well, according to a new post on the game's official website, it appears the team behind the game is thinking about how it will tackle a few fundamental problems that will help its creation software better thrive. For starters, Media Molecule notes that any original IP made using Dreams is retained by the creator, and the creators are free to do whatever they want with what they make, including making merch, including the work in a portfolio, and more. However, the biggest leap forward is Media Molecule wrapping its collective mind around Dreams being used to create real works that can be viably used and deployed off of the platform. As such, the developer is opening a so-called beta evaluation that players can sign up for so that they can see how people might intend on using Dreams. It's not only games Media Molecule wants to explore, but concept art, music videos, and more. Chris, what do you think of this? This is nice. There's long been rumors that Media Molecule and Sony are going to have to learn how to deal with these new licensing problems using their engine. And we've discussed in the past that I really think that they should open a marketplace for the games being made there so people can make money. This seems like a first step towards that. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I think the platform can't survive without that. I think it's interesting because it's following a very similar trajectory to pretty much any time a typically difficult career or difficult hobby gets a very low barrier to entry. Like we saw it with YouTube a lot, like in 2005 when suddenly content creation became a lot easier and a lot more manageable, and then it became, profitable and allowed people to kind of create their own things. SoundCloud is similar in as far as music goes, whereas before people had to get like agents and like play gigs and shit. Now you can just make whatever the hell you want with very easily accessible tools. Video editing is the same. So it stands to reason that, like anytime that you open up game development to your average kid or teenager with very little, with a $20-$30 barrier to entry, it stands to reason that a lot of people are probably going to flock to that who are interested in that, and it stands to reason that there's going to be a lot of content made on that engine or that platform that need to be sustained if you want to keep people on it, and need to be nurtured if you want to keep people on it. So I think it's a smart move. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it's interesting just how quickly it's happening because you're seeing the YouTube evolution in like weeks, basically. Yeah,
it's I think you put it really well. It's essential to the survival of this game, especially because it's not selling well, and will allow it to proliferate, hopefully not only on this platform, but on PC as well. I think it's obvious that it'll come to PC. It'll obviously be native and backwards compatible on PS5. So this is a first step in the right direction. It's a little concerning. I think Dreams is so half-baked that this actually just proves how half-baked it is, because this is something that should have been dealt with before the game came out. If they had any idea like how it was going to operate and how it was going to work, they certainly had enough time. This isn't something the developers need to deal with. This is something lawyers need to deal with. And why they didn't have this all going in the background so that this would all be ready to go as a selling point when the game still had a little bit of spark behind it last month is anyone's guess. Completely silly. Feel bad because the game is definitely not doing well. We'll talk about that in a little while. But this is certainly a step in the right direction to at least try to make it viable and last.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. It's a bit scary out there right now, and it's an anxious time for all of us. If you're a fan of Cormac McCarthy's The Road like I am, you may feel like that reality is right around the corner, but it isn't. We just need to get through what we're facing, and doing so requires some self-care. And CBD, cannabidiol, may just help you find your center again, rest, sleep, and calm yourself in these uncalm times. CBD is a completely natural extract from the marijuana plant, and it naturally alleviates worry, insomnia, and more. Better yet, it doesn't get you high, so if you're not in the mood for a stoner movie marathon, fear not. You're not going to turn into Spicoli by taking CBD. Quite the opposite, in fact. With better rest and more relaxation, you'll likely find yourself sharper and more eager to take on the day, even if, for now, taking on the day is a little more insular than it sometimes is. CBD can be intimidating, of course, and if you feel unsure about it, Feels can help since there's real human support behind the company that can explain everything you need to know and guide you towards an experience tailored to your needs. It's also really easy to take. It comes in a vial with a dropper. You put some liquid under your tongue and give it a little time and voila, you're good to go. CBD doesn't cause a hangover, nor is it addictive, so it's also something you can take if and when you need it. If you want to try Feels CBD for yourself and get 50% off your first order and free shipping, head to feels.com/symbols. That's feals.com/symbols and get on the path towards the relaxation that eludes you. Again, that's feels.com/symbols. Worry not, dear friends. We'll get through this together, and Feels can help. Number 7, long-running rumors of a return of a Tony Hawk video game appear to be founded after all. Australian punk rock band Death Set released a post on their Facebook page that they licensed 5 of their songs to the Tony Hawk 2020 video game, though other details of the yet unannounced game haven't been revealed. From 1999 through 2015, the so-called Pro Skater series ran via publisher Activision across virtually every platform imaginable. Neversoft and Robomodo were the primary teams behind the dozen or so games, though the franchise ended on an increasingly poor note, finishing with Pro Skater 5 in 2015. Free of Activision, but with plenty of name recognition and excitement behind his products, it's unclear who Tony Hawk has partnered with for his new game or what platforms it'll be arriving on. His only post-Activision game was 2018's Tony Hawk Skate Jam, a casual iOS and Android title. I loved that the band just came out and just said that they licensed their games to this, like they didn't know that the game wasn't announced yet or whatever, which I thought was pretty funny. So they just totally blew it wide open.
Yeah.
I wonder who they're working with. I wonder who is making this game. If they're licensing songs, I don't know about Skate Jam. Maybe there were licensed songs on there. There probably were, but that seems like a pretty heavy investment for an iOS and Android game. So you have to assume that this is a console game. But I do wonder what or who's making it and who's going to publish it. Or maybe if they went back to Activision, I don't know.
Maybe WB.
Oh, good thinking. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, that would be an interesting, because they definitely have a lot of, that would be really smart actually, because they have so many licenses that they can pull from. Because I remember like one of the cool things about Activision, or specifically Tony Hawk back in the day, was how many characters you could just put in there. Like Spider-Man was in that game for some reason, because Activision was publishing Spider-Man at the time, I think. It's interesting. It's interesting to see.
Well, we will find out.
Yeah.
Number 8. Back in 1997, a point-and-click adventure game based on the famous 1982 sci-fi movie Blade Runner came to PC. The game was developed by Westwood Studios, a team that was at the time owned by Virgin Interactive. By this point, Westwood was best known for its Command & Conquer series that Electronic Arts would later buy the studio for. But in 97, amongst a random series of licensed games, RPGs, and other titles, Westwood released its PC-exclusive Blade Runner game, and now, according to The Hollywood Reporter, it's being revived, ported to PlayStation 4 and other platforms, and readying for a 2020 launch. The remastered port is being led by Washington-based Night Dive Studios, which has quickly become a tour de force in the world of porting and remastering, having done dozens over the past 7 years, including the Turok games, the Doom 64 port about to make its way to PS4, and others. It's also working on a ground-up remake of the 1994 PC game System Shock that will also come to PS4. Night Dive Studios is working in conjunction with film company Alcon Entertainment, which brought Blade Runner's 2017 sequel, Blade Runner 2049, to the theaters. Chris, are you a Blade Runner fan?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
I've never seen it, in fairness. So it's not like I hate it or anything. But, yeah, I don't know. I just missed it. Missed the boat on it.
Well, yeah, this is a pretty interesting revival. I'll be interested to see how this game is. It, again, is a point-and-click adventure game. I wonder how it'll translate to console, but there are plenty of them on console, so we'll see how that all goes. It's interesting seeing Westwood pop up. The Westwood game that I loved was the 90s Monopoly game that they did on PC, which I played the shit out of. You can like play with people online. It was awesome. I loved it. All right. We're almost done with the news. Number 9. The MPD Group has released data about the top-selling software and hardware in the United States for the month of February 2020. When combining all applicable consoles, Call of Duty Modern Warfare was the month's best-selling game in dollar sales, with NBA 2K20, Grand Theft Auto 5, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and The Division 2 rounding out the top 5. Other notable games include Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order at 10, Minecraft at 11, Red Dead Redemption 2 at 13, and Need for Speed Heat at 19. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is the best-selling game in the United States so far this year, with Modern Warfare, NBA 2K20, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Madden NFL 20 rounding out the top 5. Modern Warfare, NBA 2K20, Madden NFL 20, Borderlands 3, and Mortal Kombat 11 are the top 5 best-selling games of the last cumulative 12 months. PS4's top 10 best-selling games on a SKU basis were in order: Call of Duty Modern Warfare, NBA 2K20, Grand Theft Auto 5, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Madden NFL 20, The Division 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Dreams, FIFA 20, and Need for Speed Heat. Year-over-year software sales are down 29%, and year-over-year hardware sales are down 34%. So you see there that Dreams snuck in number 8 if you're just counting PS4 games.
Yeah.
The 8th best-selling game in the US on PS4. Not good. Not good at all. But, well, we'll talk about this here in a moment, but Dragon Ball Z's sales are pretty strong.
Hey, man, that's a nostalgic property, I guess. Because that game looks really bad. Like, I like Dragon Ball Z, and I like Dragon Ball Z video games a lot. Like, I played, like, a ton of them back in the day, but, like, this is an interesting game to see as the best-selling game in the United States so far this year? What the hell? It's March. That's so much time for Dragon Ball Z not to be that.
It's weird. I'm surprised. It seemed like a game that Sweeney would play. He's not playing
No.
Dragon Ball Z Kakarot?
He especially is not into it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Matthew Clem wrote in and said, did Ubisoft lower the price of The Division 2 to prepare us for when the coronavirus destroys all semblance of government and society like the dollar flu did in the games? Either way, good timing on their part. It is weird, because that's what that game's about. It's about a pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's the timing is certainly very strange. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew anything, though, Matthew.
I mean, there's a lot of weird shit. Like, I think there was like some book a long time ago that said like there's gonna be a disease, there's gonna be like a virus called the Wuhan 400 in 2020, and it's like, whoa, it's real specific.
All right, and let's see here. Number 10. Speaking of sales data, we have a couple of new numbers to share about some games' global sales, according to website Gamatsu. For starters, the mega popular Monster Hunter World expansion Iceborne sales have topped 5 million copies in only a little over 2 months, making it a bona fide hit. You'll recall that the core game recently surpassed 15 million units sold, cementing it as Capcom's best-selling game of all time. Likewise, the best-selling core game of this year, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, has surpassed 2 million units sold, having launched 2 months ago to the day we're recording this podcast. Since Kakarot is the best-selling game in America so far this year, its 2 million sales is actually fairly soft, however, and shows that nothing of real consequence has had a chance yet to come out and shine, though that's about to change in the coming months. That's going to change, obviously, with Neo 2, with Doom, which I think will probably become the best-selling game of the year. Animal Crossing, obviously, and then Final Fantasy VII Remake. So we will see. But yeah, congratulations to those guys. It's amazing. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, 2 million copies sold. Number 11, on the digital-only front, Chris, Call of Duty Warzone, the new free-to-play standalone Battle Royale Call of Duty game, has so far proven to be a gigantic hit for publisher Activision. On the official Call of Duty Twitter account, it was revealed that more than 15 million individual players have tried the game so far. a stunning number for a series that's best known for its premium single-player and multiplayer offerings, and in a genre that is beyond saturated. While Warzone currently accommodates up to 150 players per match, an article on USA Today notes that developer Infinity Ward is already aiming to roll out a patch that will allow 200-player matches, which will help further cement the game's place amongst the current pantheon of free-to-play shooters, including Fortnite, PUBG, and Apex Legends. So already 15 plus million players trying it out. It's free. There is no barrier to entry, so I don't know how impressive that really is, but considering there are a lot of other competitors, I think it's pretty good.
They probably also advertise the hell out of it on all their main Call of Duty games. I would imagine that there's probably like a little message of the day or like a pop-up window that says, hey, we got this new Battle Royale thing, try it. Which goes probably a long way since Call of Duty sold the best every single year in the last decade.
Indeed. So congratulations to Activision and Infinity Ward on that. And then finally, number 12, the wrap-up. Website Gamatsu reports that old-school action platformers Oniken, Unstoppable Edition, and Odalus, The Dark Call will come to PS4 next week on March 24th. That card-based RPG Deep Sky Derelicts Definitive Edition is also coming to PS4 next week on March 24th. That music-based shooter Freedom Finger is also coming to PS4 on March 24th. That artsy side-scroller A Juggler's Tale is coming to PlayStation in 2021, though it's unclear if it's coming to PS4, PS5, or both. That third-person RPG Zwan Sword 7 is coming to PS4 later in 2020. That puzzle platformer Biped is coming to PS4 in the second quarter of 2020. And that adventure game Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York is coming to PS4, quote-unquote, very soon.
Jesus Christ.
Though it remains to be seen exactly what that means. Website Polygon has revealed that cartoonish baseball game Super Mega Baseball 3 is coming to PS4 in April. And finally, website Push Square reports that popular anime Demon Slayer, which Chris is a big fan of, is getting an arena-style fighter that will be coming to PS4 in 2021, though it's unclear if it will migrate west. Apparently it will migrate west. Apparently it was just brought here, the anime itself. I don't watch anime because I'm not a fucking dork, but we have that to look forward to as well. So that's all the news.
How nice.
Chris, let's get into the games that are coming out this week in the drop. As tradition dictates, you will go first.
Chop is Dish comes to PS4. Chop is Dish tells... I hate that. Something about that is really weird to say. Chop is Dish tells the story of one cook who was robbed by some mystical creatures. Some strange monsters had suddenly appeared in his forest and stole his master chef's chunk of beef. Our cook needs this meat for his ultimate dish, and now it's gone. He has to act quickly and dangerously by pursuing the thieves and recovering his grand ingredient.
Doom 64 comes to PS4. Celebrate Doom's 25th anniversary with the release of Doom 64, originally released in 1997, and now available for the first time on PlayStation consoles. As you battle through more than 30 action-packed levels, be on the lookout for enhanced weapons and secrets to help you put an end to the demonic threat.
It's interesting that they still call it Doom 64, but Zombie U had to change to Zombie.
Yeah, it is weird. I told you that I mean, it was just when this game was announced coming to PS4, I was like, I thought Doom 64 was just a port of Doom.
Yeah.
I didn't even actually know it was a unique game. I did not know that. That was just something that was totally lost on me for 20-something years. So I'm actually, I'd like to buy that and play it at some point. I've actually never played it because I just assumed that I had already played it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. Doom Eternal comes to PS4. Hell's armies have invaded Earth, become the Slayer in an epic single-player campaign to stop the final destruction of humanity. Also includes battle mode, a new 2 versus 1 multiplayer experience in which a fully armed Doomslayer faces off against 2 player-controlled demons in a best-of-5 round match of intense first-person combat.
There it is, Chris. You're very soon. But when we talk next, you'll be in hell. And I can't wait to hear what you think of it.
I'm so excited.
Epic Word Search Collection comes to PS4 and Vita. Epic word search puzzles are enormous. There are more than 1,500 words hidden in each massive scrollable grid. This collection contains Epic Food Word Search, Epic Journeys Word Search, Epic Animals Word Search, and Epic Sports Word Search.
Explosive Jake comes to PS4 and PS Vita. Explosive Jake is a classic arcade game. Not only humans are afraid of dark and deep dungeons. Our hero is a little skeleton with an unhealthy love of explosions. Trying to escape from dangerous castle dungeons, help him avoid enemies and explode his way out. Sounds like Explosion Man. A little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. Or the little-known PlayStation 3 game, what was it called? Explodamon, which was largely accused of copying that game. Chemico comes to PS4. Chemico is a game styled around Japanese Shinto beliefs. Fight as priestesses and battle against demons while solving puzzles to make your way through the stages. Look no further if you are looking for an arcade game with a twist.
Okay. La Mulana comes to PS4. Experience a classic tale of exploration, puzzle solving, and deadly action. Take control of archaeologist Lameza Kozugi. Kasugi?
Yeah, it's whatever. Who cares?
And navigate through puzzles, traps, and deadly guardians to claim the secret treasure of life. Will you succeed in unraveling the secrets of La Mulana, or will you fall victim to the dangers that surround you?
It's interesting. La Mulana came to Vita and PS3 already. I thought it was on PS4, but I guess not. And I don't know why they wouldn't release it earlier, considering La Mulana 2 comes to PS4. Experience a classic tale of exploration, puzzle solving, and deadly action. Renowned archaeologist Lameza Kuzugi has gone missing, and his only daughter Lumisa can find him. Enter Eglana, an upside-down version of the legendary ruins of La Mulana. What will you find at the end of your journey? Triumph or defeat?
I don't know what's happening.
I don't either, but I don't understand why would they release them at the same time?
That's probably like a pseudo bundle kind of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Just seems like you would want to get people stoked up, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. MLB The Show 2020 comes to PS4. MLB The Show is what baseball dreams are made of. With new ways to play, greater customization, and more exciting new paths to rake in rewards. This is the biggest and best show ever. The Show 20 is your ticket to play America's pastime your way.
Neverlast comes to Oh, by the way, real quick about the show. That's the last time that the show is ever going to be PlayStation exclusive.
That's right.
Just so you guys know.
It's the end of an era.
It is. Neverlast comes to PS4. Stop the demon invasion by destroying the 3 runic portals before it's too late in this fast-action, first-person fantasy game. As a reckless hero from a bygone era, and your castle is under siege from the dark forces. All right?
All right.
Destroy all 3 runic portals that have been summoned to your mana before it's too late. By the way, I know how... Well, we'll talk about it more next week when we read Twin Breakers, but I have a lot of insight into how these things are written and how they are garnered now, by the way. But I'll save it. I'll save the intrigue for next week because it makes it even worse when you find out how it happens.
RBI Baseball 20 comes to PS4. Legends, start here. That's how it's written, I swear. Unleash greatness with your MLB crew in RBI Baseball 20. RBI redefines arcade baseball action with massive advancements, including brand new batting, pitching, and base running controls, all new broadcast-style pitching camera, major visual improvements, and more authenticity.
Rainbows, Toilets, and Unicorns comes to PS4.
Good.
Rainbows, Toilets, and Unicorns is a fast-paced shoot-'em-up bullet hell where you'll have to progress through waves of enemies and beat 15 bosses.
Oh, it's a shump.
It's a shump, that's right. There are 5 different and completely crazy worlds. On your trip into the crazy world of unicorns, you can vent your unjustified frustration and face all of your most unfounded fears. All right?
Red Death comes to PS4. Blast through waves of arcane enemies and take down monstrous bosses as you defend the Earth against an unknown calamity. I like the word calamity. It's not used that often. It's not used nearly enough. As a prologue to Project Starship Vertical Bullet Hell Shump. I'm going to start saying shump now instead of shoot 'em up. You have to deal with it.
Please.
Red Death sets a collision course against a full-scale invasion bent on eradicating humanity, presented in nostalgic 4-tone style. I thought I was going to say nostalgic 4K for a second. I was like, what?
All right. Let's see here. Oh, I've actually been hearing good things about this game. Round Guard comes to PS4. Castle Springbottom is under attack. It's up to the Round Guard to save the king and recover his gold. Fling your hero into the face of danger and bounce off hordes of dangerously cute monsters to reach the bottom of the dungeon. With only 1 life, you'll need to learn how to navigate hazards, make strategic choices, and master your hero's skills if you hope to defeat the final boss. Apparently, this is like Peggle, but like an RPG as well.
Oh.
So,
yeah,
I don't know.
It wasn't announced with anybody on stage fist bumping the air real quick, so
no.
I don't know if I can consider it. Thunderpaw comes to PS4 and PS Vita. Thunder was out playing with his ball in the fields when he suddenly heard a loud explosion near his house. Must have been Explosive Jake. He rushed home, worried about his parents, only to find no one was there. Just a single letter that said his parents had been kidnapped. It's up to Thunder to rescue them. It's awfully considerate. Hey, I kidnapped your parents. That's awesome.
Finally, TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2 comes to PS4. Racing across an open 60-kilometer long ultra-technical track at breakneck speed requires realistic riding skills. That is the challenge that awaits in TT2. Lots of new features lie ahead. Open world, reworked physics, classic motorbikes, and more. Fine-tune your motorbike, upgrade its performance, and monitor its data in real time to stay competitive. So those are all the games. Chris, there are some big ones. Doom Eternal, obviously, I think is the biggest. And there's also MLB The Show.
Yeah.
So I would say that those are the two big guys for this week.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. I'm so excited. Good Lord.
Yeah, I don't request games anymore, so I'm going to buy it and play it this weekend, hopefully. So we'll have much to say about it next week, episode 91. Chris, as tradition dictates, we have 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience ready to be jumped into. They've submitted them on Patreon just like you guys can. Zach Heller wrote into us, said, "Howdy, CNC. With all the delays hitting the film industry, what do you think will be the first high-profile game to get a delay due to Corona? Do you think there will be any? Stay safe, guys." What do you think, Chris? Do you think we're going to... So, like, every film has been delayed, basically. So,
yeah.
I think that this is a little different because you don't have... It's not like you don't have to, like, go somewhere and, like, sit in a theater with other people giving you a virus.
But development is definitely probably slowing down because a lot of people are working from home, which, while, not super detrimental, there's definitely a breakdown in communication there that would probably slow things down a little bit more than they otherwise would be. I know that Bungie is working from home right now. I know that plenty of other developers are taking similar precautions. I don't know. As far as like the first high profile, like, I'm gonna say this right now, and I think I'm right. Halo. I think Halo's getting delayed. And I think it's probably going to be the first high-profile one because it's the first game that's really been announced to launch with these next-gen consoles. And because the next-gen consoles are likely going to be delayed, I would imagine that that's probably the first one that we'll hear about because it's the only one that we really know about.
Right. Yeah, well, that would be an interesting one because that would be interesting, especially because so many people have been waiting for it for so long.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, so, yeah, I know exactly. You know all about it. So, yeah, I don't know. But I don't think any of the imminent games are going to get delayed. Like, we know that Final Fantasy VII Remake is gold or going gold.
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil 3, they just said was going to make it.
What do you think about Cyberpunk? What do you think about their chances? Because they've already delayed.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. I know that I was reading, I didn't feel like it was really newsworthy, but I was reading that CD Projekt is all working remotely now as they wait for this thing to ride out, especially because Europe has been so obliterated by this virus, and it's even gotten into Poland where they are. So it's realistic that it could get delayed, and I think people would just have to understand. I just think that we have to look at this now. Like, Ghost of Tsushima might get delayed, and I don't know if The Last of Us Part 2 will get delayed. They did release a picture of the studio like working and like looking at a build. I think that they'll probably make it. But if PS5 doesn't come out this year, which we might get an announcement on in the coming weeks, then maybe it makes a lot of sense to just boot both of those games to the fall, or like actually let Last of Us leapfrog Ghost of Tsushima and come out in the fall, whatever, just so there's something to play. But I don't know if they're really interested in doing that. I don't know how they're going to try to balance their books, but yeah, Cyberpunk's is an obvious one. And this might have really lasting ramifications for just about everything that comes out after Q2. So we'll keep a close eye on the situation. But these are the times where you're glad that you have a backlog, and you're glad that you have, if you're like me, you have 500 games on your PS4 in your library.
Yeah.
So there's certainly something there to play. Ryan Griffiths wrote in and said, "Yo, Sea Dogs. We hear all the time about video games being made into movies and TV series, but if you could make a game based off of a movie or TV series instead, and to a very high quality, I'm talking Naughty Dog standards, what would you like to see? Personally, I'd love to see a game based on Judge Dredd. Keep up the best podcast out there from a longtime fan." And he says, "P.S. have recently discovered the Snark Take podcast thanks to Sacred Symbols, and it's fucking hilarious. The Twinkie conversation last week had me crying with laughter. Tom Sweeney needs his own channel already." Snark Tank is Chris's comedy podcast.
Yeah.
So shout out to that. All right. So this is a good one. This is actually a good, thoughtful question. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, things that come to mind for me are like games or shows like The Expanse, which I really love, but that's based on a book as well. That would be a pretty cool game. Something I've been watching Vikings and which is pretty good, and that would be a pretty cool game. I really liked the show. It got canceled after the 3rd season, I think, but it was called Colony.
Right.
About an alien invasion of Earth. I really, really loved that show as well. That would be a cool game. Those guys come to mind. And obviously, I mean, it's the trite answer at this point, but just a high quality $100 million G.I. Joe game. I'd fucking kill for that. Just absolutely love that. What do you think? Is there anything that comes to mind for you, Chris?
Oh, man. Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe.
Dirty Jobs. I feel like there was a Dirty Jobs game.
Yeah, I feel like there was also. No, I don't know. I don't really... nothing comes to mind. I kind of don't like my worlds intersecting like that. Like, I remember when the Walking Dead game came out, and I remember being like, I don't know if like the game itself was good, but like the premise of playing a game based off a TV show felt really kind of strange to me, and I didn't really like it, which is weird because I don't mind playing movie-based games, and like there's plenty of movie-based games from like when I was a kid that I really adore. But I don't know, for whatever reason, TV shows and like stuff like that, like I don't know. I think I'm happy having my own IP, and there are some certain IP that I feel are just video game versions of existing movie IP or existing TV show IP without actually having the IP. Like obviously, like Uncharted is Indiana Jones, and Destroy All Humans is like kind of like an Invader Zim kind of games, and there's a bunch of like spiritual games like that. But I don't know if I want to see a direct like, hey, here's, I don't even know. Here's Tim Allen in Home Improvement, the video game. Like, I don't know if I need that.
Yeah, well, there was a Home Improvement video game that I do know for sure. It was on
there
SNES.
was. Yeah, it was a SNES. He had a chainsaw and he killed velociraptors.
Yeah, so just the era of just everything having to be licensed, it was really weird. I did look it up. There is no Dirty Jobs game, so we could make that a reality, perhaps. Mike Rowe has disappeared off the face of the planet. He was an interesting cat.
Yeah, he was.
You remember Cash Cab?
I was just about to bring up Cash Cab. Who is that guy?
I don't know. I always just see them as the same person, but they're not. But they're not the same person. Let me see. Cash Cab is.
I can't believe that train of thought was so similar.
Guy named Ben Bailey. They do kind of look like the same person.
They look so similar.
It's pretty interesting.
They kind of look like what's that guy? I think it's like Hayden Thomas or like something. He played Sandman in Spider-Man 3. They both have that kind of like square jaw, kind of like everyman kind of look to him. Thomas Hayden Church.
Oh, okay. There you go. Let's see here. All right. Chris wrote in, different Chris. He says, "Hey guys, thoughts on Reggie Fils-Aimé being appointed to the GameStop board of directors? What do you think he could bring to the failing game store?" So Nintendo's Reggie, he doesn't work there anymore. He retired. This was a big story, but I feel like I'm sick of talking about GameStop, and also we're not a Nintendo podcast, so it just didn't seem relevant, but I did want to bring it up here in the letter, the letter section of our podcast. Yeah, so he's joined the GameStop board of directors and is going to help try to turn that company around. Obviously, Reggie is best known as the former president and COO of Nintendo of America, which he was for almost 15 years, I think. So what did you make of this? This was a weird one. They must be offering him a nice chunk of change because I don't feel like he has any insight that's going to save that company, because I don't think anyone has any insight that's going to save that company. I don't think it's to be saved. But what do you think about it? Did you see this story?
I did. I think it's super smart on Reggie's part, because he goes into GameStop. Everybody expects GameStop to just kind of die and dwindle away. Like that's the expectation for GameStop, is that they just perish under the weight of their own irrelevance. So Reggie just going in there, making a decent amount of money to just go in there and try to help. Like if he fails, everybody's like, well, I mean, what could Reggie have done really realistically? And he just looks like a nice guy helping out this company. But if he somehow manages to pull some miracle out of, if he managed to like somehow turn that company around and make it profitable again, then he's the guy that saved GameStop. So like it's like a virtually win. It's a complete win-win for him. Like regardless of how you could possibly spin it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It reminds me of, why am I spacing on his name? The guy who ran Xbox before Phil Spencer.
Oh, Don Matrick.
When he went to Zynga, I was like, why are you doing this? But it's obviously for money. I mean, he even precipitated maybe the ruination of that company ultimately.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be lost because, like you're saying, if he does have this like meteoric success and this mighty titan like turnaround of this company, he's gonna look like a hero. And if not, he already retired. He already made his mark. No one's really gonna judge him.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to know how much he's making.
Imagine hiring Don Matrick. I can't imagine. God.
Just absolutely. I don't talk about people's looks. I'm not God's gift to man by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't mean this in terms of if he's attractive or ugly, but he just has a face that it just made me viscerally angry. Like his doofy affect.
He made everybody viscerally. I don't know anybody, like when I was like really deep into the Xbox ecosystem, and I still am to a certain extent. But like I remember back when he was like the main guy who would come up every E3. None of my friends were happy to see him. He was always the worst part of the show. And I firmly believe like he tanked. He did more damage to Xbox as a brand than I think anyone could have possibly done damage to anything. Like, it's amazing. Like that famous interview of him being like, well, we have a product for those who can't get any sort of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360. It's like, good Lord, you moron. And then getting hired at a company. I don't know, man. Whatever. I feel like I could have made a better hiring decision there by just not doing that.
Yeah, agreed. So we can move on from him.
Yeah.
Giorgio Jankowski wrote in and said, hey, CNC, first time writing in. You are the only Patreon I've ever joined, and thank you both for the great content. Thank you, Giorgio. Colin, previously you've talked about PlayStation exclusives like God of War and Spider-Man having an attach rate of around 10% based on copies sold versus PS4s in the wild, much lower than Nintendo. My inquiry is, unlike Nintendo games, PS4 exclusives are often sold used at a much lower cost. How many millions of used copies of Spider-Man and God of War do you think get sold compared to the reported numbers of digital and brand new copies sold from Sony? As someone who buys used copies myself, I wouldn't be surprised if used sales account for more than double the reported numbers, thus giving titles much higher attach rates than we think. Keen to hear your thoughts. Chris, I think he's missing something important here. The attach rate, when you get rid of your physical game, you're removed from the attach rate. You don't own it anymore. So if the game is sold used, it doesn't affect it at all.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep that in mind. Sony doesn't see any of that money, which I don't really care about. But it is important to note that, like, if you sell God of War, you're not, and someone else gets that copy of God of War from GameStop that you used to own, the attach rate stays the exact same. So I think a lot of games are circulated on PS4 at used, but I think that I haven't seen stats, and I don't know about this, Chris. I don't know if you have any insight into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo Switch games actually sold used at a higher clip, because Nintendo games retain their value way longer.
Yeah.
Their relative market value. Nintendo doesn't drop the prices in games. Sony drops the price of first-party games pretty quickly, and you can get games like God of War and Spider-Man for no more than like $10 now, I think, or $15. So
yeah,
you're not going to see Pokemon or anything like that at $15 or $10 ever. So I don't know what the statistics really indicate, but I do want to point out that while your question is coming from the right place, you're not looking at it through an accurate lens, because the copy is already out there. It's sold. It's sold once. You can only sell the game once.
Yeah. Attach rate is not, the total amount of experiences people have with video games. Like it's not like I'm sure more than 10 million people have played or experienced Spider-Man, but the attach rate is the same.
Jeffrey, we have two more. Jeffrey Leonard wrote in and said, hey, Hugh Honey and Vic Vinegar. I've been paying close attention to The Last of Us Part 2 since it was announced. That being said, I have noticed that some people have a problem with one particular aspect of the game. Ellie is the protagonist this time around, and her sexuality is being unapologetically placed as a pillar of her character. Many people in the gaming community feel this is being pushed in a pandering manner, that it may be jeopardizing the quality of the writing. We've known about her sexuality since Left Behind, and it was hinted at throughout the first game outside of any religious or political differences. There needed to be a period there. Outside of any religious or political differences, I see no reason to take issue with this very real aspect of her character. Do you think people are getting bent out of shape over this, or is Naughty Dog being a little too preachy with her character evolution? I'm really interested to see what you have to say about this, Chris, because I really feel like, and this comes up on our show every once in a while, but I feel like people are getting way too enamored with being upset about just menial and stupid shit. Like, is her lesbianism, like her sexuality, is that like a part of her character? Yeah. But I don't feel like they're pushing it or anything like that. They're just exposing the character more and who she is and how she operates in this really dystopian world. But I'm so sick of, and I'm not saying Jeffrey's actually, I think, making our point, or my point, which is like, how is it jeopardizing the quality of the writing?
Yeah.
You know, like, how is it putting anything into doubt about how good this game's going to be or how it plays or anything like that? It's just a little bit of a piece of different texture for Ellie's character that I quite enjoy. I think it's really cool that she's gay because it wasn't something you really expected to ever come up or be relevant, especially because she's like a teenage girl in the game. It's like a taboo thing you learn about through her lens, not through a lens of necessity. I think that that's interesting, and certainly not the only gay character in the game. Obviously you meet, I don't want to spoil it, but you meet an NPC that's gay and you learn a lot about his experiences in the game through different letters and stuff like that you find. And I'm just so annoyed by people being upset about all this like SJW shit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, it sounds very snowflakey to use the terminology that I feel like would resonate most, to be upset that a gay character in a video game is gay. I don't think it's being like, I don't feel like it's being pushed too hard in the same way that I don't feel like, whenever Geralt is in the company of some lady in The Witcher 3, I don't really feel like I'm having like a straight relationship pushed on me in the same way that I just wouldn't feel the same way if a gay character was to have the same kind of thing. It's really not that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's got
to calm down.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is like such a, like, can't we just move on and talk about other things? Like, I know that it's a situation where it's a relevant factoid to talk about if these things are being pushed into your face. And I know that that's what he's saying and that some people's claims are that, but I don't see it that way in this game. And I don't know how people can look at the caliber of writing in a game like that and think anything else, but I guess we'll find out.
There's Hillary Clinton putting out 3 children's book about what a strong woman she is, and then there's actually having a strong woman character. You know what I mean? Like, those are 2 very different things, and I feel like people are often so enamored with how ridiculous the extreme is that they look at the mundane with the same kind of lens, and you got to calm down with that because you run the risk of just being exactly the kind of thing that you complain about.
And finally, Chris, Jeffrey Hurley wrote into us and said, "Hello, loquacious Colin and lascivious Chris. After playing Control, Horizon Zero Dawn, and The Division, and listening to many of the audio recordings and reading the lore, I got to thinking about how the background lore impacts the overall experience. Are these seemingly unimportant background items an unappreciated part of the world building? Is there a piece of background lore or an audio conversation that has really struck you as being particularly cool? I love the bit with metal flowers and collecting the mugs in Horizon Zero Dawn. I thought it was so clever how much importance was placed on mundane objects by the people of the future world. And I feel Horizon Zero Dawn would have been much less incredible without that." What is KDG? Keep Tuesdays great. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't even know our own sayings anymore. And thanks for all that you both do. Thank you, Jeffrey, for writing in. This is an interesting and relevant conversation to me because I would say a majority of the writing in our game is actually in collectible background documents that you don't have to read and never experience. Sure. That gives you a lot of texture to what happened in the events leading up to the game. And I had a really fun time with it, and I was really inspired by a lot of the games that I had played beforehand. And I think BioShock is one of those really inspirational games for me. I also think Arkham Asylum and certain other games are really inspirational. I really love audio diaries. I've always loved them. I think they don't make any sense really, but I think that they're cool because they allow you to listen and play and immerse yourself. The side story that I think resonated with me most, and I think this is a common theme for a lot of people, is what is the guy's name in it just came in out of my mind. Was it The Last of Us? So yeah, it's Ish. Sorry, I had to go look it up.
Yeah.
Is the story of Ish in The Last of Us. I was going to say Ib, so I knew that wasn't right. And you like just learn about this dude and his situation just by reading notes, and you find yourself in this really interesting setting in The Last of Us. I won't spoil it again. I know that some people haven't played it, although you've definitely had time to play it at this point. But you find yourself in this setting that would have no context what was going on unless you took the time to read that stuff. And it would still be a cool setting without that. But by taking the time to kind of immerse yourself in the lore outside of just the story of Joel and Ellie, it gives so much texture to the game. And I really wanted to do something like that with Twin Breaker, although it's not The Last of Us, obviously. But that's why I wanted to bring this in, because I really love that kind of stuff. I really go out of my way to read and immerse myself in that kind of stuff in games. I know some people are annoyed by that stuff, but I think it's a really cool video game centric way to tell stories. What do you think about this, Chris? What are some of your favorite standouts?
Oh yeah, no, pretty much everything in the original BioShock and BioShock Infinite were pretty fantastic to listen to, and really well delivered and really well acted. BioShock is probably like the king of audio logs, I think. I don't think that's necessarily a controversial statement. But there was one that really took me aback that was like really, really cool, which was, and this is not PlayStation centric at all, though who knows with the direction that shit's going in, it might be eventually. But in Halo 3 ODST had this whole side story just in the audio diaries of just this woman in Africa trying to escape this city during an invasion. And it's her story about trying to escape to some underground bunker, and she's like getting intercepted by these like fucking political figures. And it's like, it's totally separate from the main story and totally separate from any main characters that you meet. It holds very little relevance to any of the characters that you actually interact with in that game, but it's really, really surprisingly well acted and really well written and really cool. And it could probably be its own radio drama if it wanted to be. And I really like audio diaries. I love them. And that was one of the ones that really stuck out to me. I hope that I think it's not all that unlikely that the collection comes to a PlayStation platform in the future. I would say that that's probably at least a future thing. Yeah. So I would love for everybody to experience that, because that shit was cool.
It's so lame. It's like almost self-important to my own story. But I've really been playing around with the idea of like writing a prequel novel for Twin Breaker just for fun, because it is so fun to like flesh out the events of this thing that you just made up in your own mind, and you have an idea of what it looks like and how it happened, but no one else would know unless you told them. So I've just really come to appreciate all the work that goes into that different stuff. I will say with Control, that game was dense as shit. I mean, that was like one of the densest lore games I've ever played, where when we did our spoiler cast, I didn't even really understand the game. You know, like I think that it became clear when I was writing it and like getting all the questions together, and we got a lot of interesting and thought-provoking thoughts from people. I was just like, I don't even get what the fuck's happening here.
Yeah.
So I think you can go too far in one direction, but I do think Horizon Zero Dawn's a great example of doing it the right way, and really, really, actually, it's kind of like cute in a sense in some of the ways they do it. So, Chris, that's all we have for this episode, this viral episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. Do you have any closing thoughts before we go?
I'm going to hell.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you.
I'm so excited for Doom. I can't even describe actually with words. Maybe I could with pictures, and possibly maybe a grand piano that's really out of tune. But I cannot with words describe.
Well, I'm excited for you. I'm looking forward to playing it as well. We'll have a lot of thoughts on Doom Eternal next week. And nothing else from me except for just to stay safe out there, be good, and really try to keep to yourselves, and let's try to stem the tide of this thing so we can get back to normal as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And we'll keep going, and we'll be here for you to entertain and inform. And we will see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product of and a registered trademark of Colin's Last Stand, LLC, and is recorded from Richmond, Virginia, and Burbank, California, USA. This show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun. You can find me on Twitter at NoTaxation and on Instagram at CLS Moriarty. Chris is on Twitter at Chris R. Gunn and on Instagram at Chris_Ray_Gun. Sacred Symbols is edited by Dustin Furman. To message the show online, please use Patreon's DM service. As you know, all of Colin's Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we are eternally grateful for your kindness, generosity, and fandom. Chris Adams, Carlos Algarit, Morgan Ashley, Saul Balcazar, Taylor Barkley, Martin Beck, Tyler Bello, Mark Boggio, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Lennon Brixey, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Chris Buston, Alex Cabrera, Bjorn Campbell, Patrick Carper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chand, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Carter Childs, Rodney Coleman, Simon Conception, Brad Cooley, John Cordero, Gio Corsi, Philip Crone, Daniel Diamore, Colin Davenport, Night Draft, David Ellis, Jerome Ferreira, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Jordan Gale, Chris Galvin, Darren Gardner, Connor Gashian, Alex Gates, Michael Gates, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Jonathan H., Eric Harden, Tyler Harris, Richard Hebert III, Kyle Hagel, Wyatt Henry, Robbie Hensley, Scott Hernandez, Blake Israel, Azan Isa Al-Raisi, Josh Yeager, Joshua Jonathan, Paul Joyce, Greg Juliffs, Anton K., Patrick Kelly, Jeremy Key, Auntie Kinnanen, James Kinslow III, Ryan Arkittredge, Bo Clant, Mason Cadillac, Jackson Lastiqua, Don Q. Lee, Jeffrey Leonard, Patrick Leslie, Keith A. Lewis, Chad Lewis, Lou and Ray Loper, Colin Love, Scott Lovelace, Josh M., Kiet Mai, Ryan T. Mandel, Daniel Margaka, Ross Maranka, Matt Martin, Sean Mason, John McCarthy, Josh McKinney, Joe McPartlin, Raul Melendez, Alex Mones, Chris Moore, Betty Ann Moriarty, Ryan Murdoch, Stephen Nieder, Adam Nix, Donnie Nolan, Dan Nolan, George A. Nunez, Jesse Owen, Jorge Palomino, Andrew Parker, Zach Parsley, Daniel Parsons, Todd Paxton, Marius S. Peterson, Gerald Pennington, Matthew Perdue, Enrique Perez, Jason Pettit, Travis Plymel, Jeff Pollard, Lawrence F. Prokop, Nathan R., Ryan Reeves, Peter Reynolds, Shane Rayum, Jonathan Rice, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, Jose Salinas, John Schultz, Michael Shanholtz, Toby Shootman, Gregory Slavinsky, Joshua Smallwood, Ahmad Tamar, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Alan Tremblay, Daniel Vale, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Isaac Wastman, Damon Weathers, Mike Wayant, David Wright, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Casual Misfits Gaming, Homeworld Hub, Vexius, Throw 7, McDog 18, Infinite, Boots, Organic Produce, Madmock Media, Bloody Fang, Mubarak, Richter 86, Hugo's Desk, Of Fortuna, Andrew, Ian, Gamer Filmaholic, Megadet, and Rainick.